So firstly, tonight, we want to look at what's happening in our community and how this impacts on your teenagers. Devon is a great place to live. And although I live nearby in South Devon, I'm constantly moaned at my teenagers for not living somewhere more exciting. And I'm sure that some of you get the same. Although some of our bigger cities are definitely becoming more diverse, many of our rural and coastal towns do seem to have a long way to go. People often think of Devon as being full of sleepy villages, full of retired people. But as you can see from this data slide, that's not the true picture. Nearly 90,000 10 to 19-year-olds live in Devon, and we also have the highest number of children's homes in England. But as we will see tonight, it is not only the families that services know about that we need to be aware of. Lots and lots of children in the UK are thought to be involved in criminal activity, but only a small percentage of those are already working with services. Across the UK, hospitals saw nearly 80,000 under 18s with stab wounds in a 2-year period. 80,000 young people going to hospital because they've been stabbed. County lines and similar issues can affect all of our young people. Please don't be drawn into a false sense of security that it's just those who already live in challenging situations and areas or those with additional vulnerabilities. This really can and does affect all of our young people. We're going to see a news clip later tonight, which has a snippet of an interview from somebody called Junior Smart from the SOS Project, and he's clearly telling all parents that this is something that you need to be aware of. So you will probably have heard of the expression county lines, maybe from the news, from social media, or from safety campaigns. And your children will most certainly have had some information from their school. But as parents, you might not have had much detail shared with you. Yet, as we said at the beginning, you are the frontline security in protecting your teenagers. So I'm just going to quickly explain a little bit about what county lines is. So it's a form of criminal exploitation where criminal gangs persuade, coerce or force children and young people to either store items or transport them to suburban areas. So when we're talking about items, we're thinking about drugs, weapons or money. So county lines is an issue that can lead to serious physical and emotional harm to young people. We are seeing younger and younger children being approached to carry drugs and knives. And this is mainly because they are less likely to be stopped by the police and they're much easier to coerce and threaten. There are now sad cases of 5 and 6-year-olds in larger cities being targeted and recruited. And Devon usually follows the trends in bigger cities a few years later. The Children's Society website tells the harrowing story of a 9-year-old with thousands of pounds of drug debt and a threat on his life. And a couple of years ago in Plymouth, a teenager was jailed after he was bullied into carrying almost half a kilo of heroin and cocaine to pay off what started as a small cannabis debt. The young person was transporting £46,000 worth of drugs to Plymouth. And his mother's home in the city was broken into twice, and a threatening message against his family was left, which was his reason for doing this. His mother had already tried to pay off the gang by sending them £5,000, but they wanted more and more, and they forced the teenager into working for them. He had a phone with messages on showing that he was supplying these drugs and trying to source more in Bristol or Birmingham. It's worth mentioning here that nobody else in this story was caught other than the teenager. Nobody else was arrested or charged or sent to prison. And we're going to explore that a little bit further in a minute. So these types of gangs really like new recruits, so children with no previous criminal history. And they refer to these young people as clean skins, so young people with no prior police involvement, often from families like yours and mine, not involved with any agencies. For example, your teenager may be at a party and be offered something to smoke, maybe some weed, and they accept this and they smoke it, assuming that it's free. They then get asked to pay for it at a very overinflated price. Your teenager's got no money on them, but the friend that gave it to them wants paying now and threatens them if they can't pay. So they may be offered another way to pay off this debt, such as selling something to another friend. Lots of young people who get into trouble this way are too embarrassed to tell anyone and can't bring themselves to ask friends or parents for any support. They often feel that their parents have enough money worries and they don't want to ask for any more money than they need to. They often receive threats from these gangs, such as, I know where your little sister goes to school, or I know where you live. And this is the way that they can be coerced into carrying and delivering more things. Gang leaders are very clever at not enabling people to leave. It may be then that your young person agrees to do one job, dropping a packet to somebody, but then they get mugged on the way there, and then they owe that gang a large amount of money. That mugger is part of the gang, but your young person now possibly owes hundreds of pounds to the gang. And any teenager can get involved very quickly into something that they can't get out of. And as well as being used to transport drugs, county lines can also sexually abuse and exploit young children of any gender. And this can happen through children being groomed into what they believe is a romantic relationship with a gang member, which then leads to exploitation. And we're going to look at this in a little more detail during next week's session. So I'm not sure if any of you watch Hollyoaks, but soaps can be a great place to explore difficult situations. They're really good conversation starters. Hollyoaks tackled county lines really well a couple of years ago, and we've got a clip that clearly shows how any child can be coerced into it. It's only a few minutes long, but it does show how easy it is for children to be recruited. So we saw at least 3 main victims here. There was Juliet, Charlie and Ella, and they'd all be on the bottom tier of this gang hierarchy model that you can see on your screens now. They're the ones who are taking all the risks, having all the stress, and effectively possibly changing their futures. The older male at the beginning talking to Ella is probably on the next level up, but he's also going to have enormous pressure on him from above. And on this higher tier, well, these are the people that are making the money, the people that we never see, the ones that the police really want to catch. Like the teenager in Plymouth that was jailed for transporting the drugs for the gang, he would have been on the bottom rung of this ladder, and the employees, his employers, seem untouchable much further up. And any teenagers transporting or storing drugs or money are going to be right down on this bottom rung. But we also need to understand the horrible realization that sometimes gangs are attractive and exciting to our young people. Think about movies such as The Fast and the Furious, or games that they play online on their Xbox, etc. Gangs are sometimes portrayed as glamorous and edgy, all things that are attractive to our young people. The St Giles Trust, and in particular the SOS Project, are an organisation who support vulnerable young people who are at risk of or who are escaping from exploitation. And many of their team of workers are people who have previously led the kind of life that we're talking about. And they've done some really good research about why people are sometimes drawn more to this way of life. And one of the biggest reasons outside of the sense of belonging was money. So mainly for boys, actually, it wasn't a major factor for most of the girls, and less girls felt that they needed to support their families more. But any quick search of Instagram or Snapchat will show you literally hundreds of images of young people covering themselves in cash. Money's really attractive to most people, and especially young people who might feel that peer pressure to have the latest trainers or the latest tickets to somewhere. There aren't many jobs that pay a decent wage for our children, and pressure on families right now means that very few families have limitless money to satisfy the needs of teenagers. And criminal activity can appear to pay very well. And this attraction to money then leads on to another common reason for getting involved in crime, which is respect. Again, if you've got the latest fashion or you've got a big car, young people feel that this gives them respect and credibility in their peer groups. It also offers them a perceived perception that there's a protection that they can buy to help themselves, and that they can buy themselves out of some situations. And next week, we're going to look more at image and grooming, because for both of our boys and girls, this protection was a major issue. And then finally, something to do was a top 5 reason for gang members wanting to join. There's nothing else to do. I was bored. We all know that our communities used to have more youth clubs and events, but a lot of those services have been cut, and it can feel sometimes like there is little to occupy our teenagers. We looked at that brain development last week and how we need to be constantly challenging our teenagers. And this week, the message is the same. Keep them busy. Get them into sports, watching or playing, watch a Netflix season together. Sign them up to everything and anything, because that sense of belonging is still what most people are seeking. And we're going to give out some local contacts for you in Devon at the end of next week. But please take any opportunity to open up conversations with your young person about gangs. Talk about movies that you've watched or point out any drug stories in the media, especially where things ended up way less than glamorous. These are great conversations to try and have over the weekly dinners that we were talking about last week. I'm going to play you a recording now of a young person that we have worked with who wanted to share her story with you all. This is Libby.
Hello, I'm Libby. I'm 15 and I live in foster care in Cornwall, but I used to live in South Devon with my mum and my little sister. My mum is trying to currently move house so that we can all live together again. There was this girl at my school called Abby who always had lots of nice new clothes and was really popular. No one ever messed with her. One day she asked me if I could help her out by dropping a package to a friend's house for her. She said she would pay me £10 and I did not want to say no, so I did it. It was a very small parcel and the flat I went to was quite scary, but she gave me £10 and asked if I would do some more the next day. I said I couldn't and she said that was okay. The next day at school, my best friends wouldn't even talk to me. When I asked them why, they said that they had heard that I was selling drugs and didn't want to be around me anymore. School was really horrid with no friends, and it seemed as if everyone was talking about me. I started skipping some classes and not wanting to go in. I couldn't really tell my mum because she was arguing with her boyfriend at the time. One afternoon, Abby asked me again if I wanted to deliver something for her. I had nothing else to do, so I said yes. I earned £30 in 2 nights, and I was good at it, so she asked me to go a bit further away. She gave me a rail card so I didn't have to buy train tickets, and a phone so that she could get hold of me. I skipped school more and more as I had paid work to do, and Abby was my only friend. One day I had over £300 on me and I got mugged. I lost the money and all the little packages that I had. When I told Abby, she told me that it was okay, but that I now owed her over £600 and that I would have to pay it off. She also said that she would have to charge me interest until it was paid. I had no way of paying back. I could not ask my mum, and so I had to work for Abby for free. Abby told me how to store the drugs inside my body so that I wouldn't get mugged again. Abby gave me more and more work to do, and because I wasn't getting any money, I had to answer the phone whenever she called me. She threatened to stab my little sister if I didn't keep working for her, so I had no choice. She told me that I could pay the money back faster in other ways by being nice to some of her male friends. I didn't want to do it, but I needed a way out. They got me very drunk and recorded some of the things they made me do. Abby threatened to post the video online for all my friends to see if I stopped working for her. My mum was getting really cross with me. I was never home, and when I was home, I was tired and irritable. She kept getting hassled from school as I was never there. I didn't have anyone to tell as it was my own fault for starting it and for all the things I had done. When a social worker got involved, my mum was really cross with me, and I had to move out so that I wasn't a bad influence on my little sister. Abby and her friends used to hang around outside my house, ringing the bell and running away to try and find out where I was. My little sister was only 11, but they tried to talk her into going out with them. When I moved area and had a social worker, Abby tried to contact me, but it was harder for me to go anywhere, so she finally left me alone. I eventually told my foster carer what had been happening, and she believed me, but I was too scared to tell anyone else. The foster carer talked to my mum to help her understand, and now hopefully, when my mum has moved, I can go back there and live. I keep thinking what I could have done to stop it sooner, but I was so scared.
So we are listening to some tough stories tonight. And as parents, you are unable to protect your children from everything. Remember, there's no magic wands. But from working with parents whose children have been involved in gangs and exploitation, There are some common signs that you can look out for that might suggest your son or daughter are involved in something that you would prefer them not to be. You know what their usual behaviour is, and you'll be able to spot any significant changes. Chloe's going to talk to you in a minute, and both of us again later during future sessions, about how to have some of these difficult and awkward conversations and what to do about safety planning. But for now, I just want to point out a few warning signs for you. Lots of these are normal teenage behaviours, and it's only if they are very dissimilar or against what you would normally expect to see from your teenager that you will need to explore more. So it's a really good reason, isn't it, to get involved in your teenagers' lives. You need to know what is normal behaviour for them. So some of the things to look out for. Firstly, an increase in money. So do they suddenly have lots of new clothes, shoes or makeup? Are they bringing home takeaway food? Do they have lots of new piercings, tattoos? Are they buying gifts for people? Are there lots of Amazon deliveries turning up on your doorstep? Do they have just more available cash? If there's no new job and you're not funding all of this, where's the money coming from? So families where both parents don't live together can make this harder to spot, as teenagers will happily say how much the other parent is giving them. But maybe you're finding hotel key cards, unexplained keys. Hotels are really good places for drug drops. I can't say that, drug drops, as they aren't always manned anymore. You don't have to walk past a reception. You can obviously sometimes just check yourselves in with a card. So things can easily be left in hotels to be picked up. There's no face-to-face contact needed. So there's a bit of privacy for storing things. Additional phones are a huge telltale sign. A new phone, which they cannot explain or they give a poor explanation for. If they won't let the phone out of their sight, they answer it immediately and secretively. And some of this is not unusual. We know that most teenagers are literally glued to their phones. Their whole lives are in their phones. But again, you're looking for something unusual. Are they suddenly reacting differently when their phone rings? Rail cards is something else to look out for. Again, if there's no previous need for a rail card, why is it necessary? Where are they going? Who has bought them this? And again, these are often provided by gangs to enable that easy travel for county lines. We need to be looking for physical injuries, so unexplained bruising, burns, broken bones, a reluctance to seek any medical help, minimising injuries that you might see, which might show that your teenagers are being pressured by physical force. We need to be looking out for new medical needs. Things like sexually transmitted infections, skin sores, eating disorders, and horribly excessive toilet use. So young people have to store drugs and money that they're given somewhere. And I'm sorry to say the safest place sometimes can seem like inside their own bodies. For this, they're going to need Vaseline or lube. They're going to need condoms, cling films, sandwich bags, things that you might not expect usually to find in their bedrooms or their bathrooms. Think about their general presentation. Putting drugs inside your body can be a messy business. It doesn't smell very nice. So you could be looking for a lack of or excessive personal hygiene. How's their presentation? Are they depressed? Does life for them just seem a little bit harder than usual? Are they over or under eating? Or are they using self-harm as a way of coping with things that seem out of their control? Are they using words that they wouldn't previously have used? Are they listening to new types of music? A new reliance or a greater use of drugs and alcohol? Do they have lots of new friends? Again, none of these things in isolation are a problem for young people, but they are when they're being secretive about it. So do they have new partners, often older new partners? Are they being picked up in high-spec cars and no longer socialising with their old friends? Are they going missing? Not necessarily as a missing person for a long length of time, although this can happen. Think more about them consistently being out late, ignoring your curfews, with no explanation of where they've been. Do they suddenly go out when their phone rings and won't tell you where they're going? Are they missing school or college and they're not attending their previous clubs and social events? I know some of these things are difficult to hear, and some of these warning signs are what you would expect to see. But in reality, not confronting them is going to make everybody's life much harder. Difficult mixed messages are often given by the media, and the parents' role in teenagers' lives are rarely mentioned. I'm just going to show you a 5-minute news clip which clearly demonstrates